Hey there Apex Agents, it's Mobius Y with another video for Mass Effect Andromeda's multiplayer mode, and today is another weapon profile. These types of videos are a little long overdue, and today we're taking our first look at one of the assault rifle style of weapons, the Cyclone. Now the Cyclone assault rifle is an uncommon grade weapon, so it should be fairly easily unlocked even for new players, especially if you are bumping up to difficulties such as silver and gold and starting to buy things like advanced packs. Now, because the Cyclone is an uncommon grade weapon, that does mean it sports the base weapon as well as the three different variants, the Bulwark, the Concussive, and the Siphon variants, which will be made available once you fully unlock and upgrade all of your base uncommon weapons. So the Cyclone is actually a pretty versatile gun, but it will probably also see a lot of heavy use on your more weapon-oriented classes, as it is a very good gun. The Cyclone boasts a very high magazine capacity with a good rate of fire and decent damage per bullet, lending it overall good DPS, or damage per second. And with good DPS, it makes it all that much easier to take down things like sub-bosses and even boss units if you have enough boosts to your weapon damage or debuffing effects applied to them. The Cyclone is very capable of all of this. The Cyclone is very capable of also landing its shots using sustained fire, even at medium ranges. It tends to maintain a good amount of accuracy even when firing on full auto from about 30 to 40 meters away. You are still very capable of not just landing your shots, but even hitting the weak points such as the heads of enemies for additional damage. On certain weapon-oriented classes, particularly those that have the turbocharge ability on certain soldiers, you will notice the Cyclone's DPS and accuracy at mid-range really start to shine, allowing you to plant really accurate shots at a very high rate of fire and just mowing down all sorts of bad guys with that really good DPS. As said before, the Cyclone is an uncommon grade weapon, meaning it does sport the three variants, Bulwark, Siphon, and Concussive. The Bulwark variant will give you better damage resistances if you are sticking close to teammates, making your character a little bit more tankier. The Concussive variant will set off biotic combos, or basically combo detonations, when you finish off enemies, with the last round being to a weak point, such as a headshot, setting off an area of effect explosion. And the Siphon variant will give you much more survivability by giving you the ability to regenerate your health as you damage enemies by shooting them. These three capabilities of the Cyclone make it a very versatile gun, capable of being used on a multitude of classes, though I do recommend you stick to using very weapon-oriented classes such as soldiers and infiltrators, particularly soldier classes that have the turbocharge ability, as they can not just maximize but further improve on the DPS potential of the Cyclone assault rifle. These soldier classes are not just capable of improving the damage per bullet and stability of the gun through their passive trees, but the turbocharge ability makes the Cyclone an absolute boss killer of a weapon by ramping up not just its damage per bullet as well as its stability and accuracy, but also increasing the rate of fire, making the DPS output insanely high on the Cyclone gun. Now, because of the good damage of the Cyclone and the high magazine capacity and good overall DPS, the Cyclone actually has one of the best damage per clip values in the entire game. The only assault rifle that actually does better damage per clip is the ultra-rare Soned assault rifle. Now that's largely because the Soned has almost as high damage per bullet, but a much higher magazine capacity than the Cyclone. This makes the Cyclone a very useful tool for when you simply want to bring a boss-killing, weapon-toting character into your game in order to make sure that you can take down those big, bad, high HP bullet sponges as fast as possible. Now, no gun is without its downsides, and the Cyclone has some of its own. The first downside of the Cyclone being that it does have a spool-up time before it will even start shooting. When you first pull the trigger, the bullets do not start flying immediately. It has about a second to spool up before it will actually start shooting. To people who have never used the Cyclone before and are trying it for the first time, this can be very off-putting and feel very weird and clunky at first. But once you get used to it, remembering to start the spool up process just before rounding a corner or just before peeking out of cover to start shooting at bad guys, it makes it a very potent weapon. It is simply an adjustment that needs to be made to one's playstyle, but it is something that can be overcome. The second minor weakness of the Cyclone is that at longer ranges, it does lose quite a bit of accuracy with sustained fire. You'll find that at ranges of about 50 or more meters, your shots will not be landing as accurately on your enemy, maybe not even hitting their weak points, or they're not even hitting your target at all, simply because the Cyclone does lose much more accuracy the longer you hold the trigger down. So things like a magazine upgrade will actually make it more difficult for you to land your shots at these greater ranges the longer you maintain your fire. So at these great ranges, it might be a little bit better to shoot in burst fire, although I wouldn't really recommend it, as again, that spool up time can really mess with your DPS output, having to spool up the gun every time you pull the trigger. So these two aspects of the Cyclone actually make it not that great of a weapon for caster classes, as casters are not constantly running around shooting their weapons. Their shooting is constantly being interrupted by, as implied, casting their powers constantly. And a gun that has a spool up like the Cyclone before it even starts shooting is simply a poor choice, because as you are trying to lay down fire and inflict damage on enemies, you have to interrupt the DPS that you are doing to cast out a power and then do the whole spool up process once again before you can start shooting. This is simply an inefficient way to dish out good damage with the Cyclone, which is why I recommend using it on more weapons oriented classes such as soldiers and infiltrators that can not only do good damage with guns on their own through passive abilities, but they also have active powers that really amp up the damage output of their guns through things like tactical cloak, or as before mentioned, turbocharge. So that should sum it up for today's video. This was the first weapon profile where we take a look at an assault rifle. I hope you found it informational and useful. Let me know in the comments below if you've tried the Cyclone and what character classes you like to use on it. Personally, I would recommend using the Siphon variant on about 99% of character classes, as the ability to regenerate your health is simply just too good to pass up, especially compared to the options that you have with the other two variants. If you liked the video, feel free to drop it a like. For more Mass Effect Andromeda content, feel free to subscribe to the channel. This has been Mobius Y for Mass Effect Andromeda's multiplayer. Hope to see you on the battlefield. Good luck, Apex agents.